When I was a kid, I was stood at Bala Lake with my stepdad. He told me if I followed that river, that I'd make it home. That moment has genuinely stuck with me ever since I can remember. And I just knew I was going to have to find out. 3 days, 70 miles from Bala Lake to Chester. We didn't even know if this was possible, but we were about to find out. There was also talks about it being for charity, which I knew straight away the Amelia May Foundation would be perfect for this. So I went to them with this idea. Bala Lake to Chester, source to sea. As soon as they heard it, they were on board, and that's how this mission was started. There was me, Zane, Tim and Jay, and Diane as our support driver. After months of planning, the day finally came. We arrived at Bala Lake and was kindly gifted a pitch by Penabont campsite. This was the ideal spot, right on the shore of Bala Lake. We didn't hang around, we set up camp and got everything prepped ready for the day ahead. I'll be honest, I could tell that everybody was slightly nervous, but I knew that this was something bigger than all of us put together. But it was almost guaranteed that we were going to get this done no matter what. So we had a quick briefing, set our alarms for 5 AM just to make sure we had the best chance possible. Day one started at 5 AM in the morning. We packed down gear and headed for the lake. We were met by some of the most perfect conditions that I've ever seen. There was no wind, no rain, the sun was just coming up, there was a beautiful mist over the water. I remember thinking that this is it, we're actually doing it. Diane waved us off and we set off full of energy, but it didn't take long for things to go wrong. The first obstacle we got to was the sluice gate. It was a bit of a killer having a big obstacle so early in the trip. So we dragged our boats out and walked around and tried looking for a spot to get back in. We managed to find a route back onto the river. It was slightly sketchy, but we made it. After that, things were going quite well for a few miles until Tim flipped his kayak, and this was the first of many to come for him. It was quite a shock seeing Tim flip this early. You know, we've got 60 odd miles left to go, and it certainly wasn't looking promising now. After that, we found our rhythm. We got a good 10 miles behind us. Everything was going perfect until me and Zane were cruising along, full of confidence, and then bang, hit a large log. Before we knew it, water was flying in. Straight away, we pulled over, assessed the damage.
So we've got a problem, first major one of the trip, and it's this major hole inside of the raft in the bottom. So it's just filling up. Jack's not happy. I'm not happy.
We're rowing in a bathtub.
And yeah, we're literally sitting in about 6 inches of water rowing it.
We tried to ring Diane, but there was no answer, no signal in Llangollen. We stood there for around 20 minutes wondering what to do with this, but there was only one option. We carried on rowing. With an extra 80 litres of water in our boat, we ploughed on for the last 10 mile. This really was one of the hardest things that we've ever done. Every rock, every log we hit, making it worse. More water was coming on. All we could think about was we were halfway through the first day. We'd ripped our boat. We had no idea if we were going to make it the rest of the trip, but we had no choice but to plough on. We arrived at Into the Wild campsite, which was another sponsor of the trip after what felt like a lifetime of rowing. Heavy arms, exhausted, but just wanted to get dry as soon as possible. The next section was rougher than the day before, so we all agreed that Tim and Jay had set off on their own to hit the rapids in their hard bottom kayaks, and we were going to meet them on the other side. We knew it was going to be rough, but we didn't want to skip a single section of the river, so Tim and Jay cracked on, we followed along in the van, and everything seemed to be going pretty well. The first obstacle that they hit was Horseshoe Falls. We went down there to see how rough it actually was, because we knew this was a pretty dangerous section of the river. We told them to get out, we walked around and got themselves back in the river to set off for the Serpent's Tail. This is possibly the most nervous I'd been on this trip. Over the years I've seen a lot of footage of this section of the river, and I knew straight away that Tim and Jay would be up against it. So me, Zane and Diane headed into Llangollen to wait for the lads to come through. We must have been there for around 20 minutes, didn't see a single kayak come through. We finally got a phone call off Jay saying you need to come up here quick. So we jumped in the van, rushed up to them to find that both of them had flipped. Jay nearly going missing, his paddle was missing.
Snap!
Okay! Jimmy! We could tell that they were both shook up after being dragged through these rapids upside down. Luckily enough, there was a kayak instructor, and her words were, "I strongly advise that you do not go any further down this river. Someone had died here recently." So we got the lads back in the van and we all headed down to a safer spot of the river to get back in after Llangollen. This cut off approximately 3 miles of the river. It hurt, but we had no choice. At the end of the day, we just wanted to make sure everybody got to the end safely. On the drive down to the next spot, we all questioned whether we should just call it a day on this and come back a lot more prepared next year. But this wasn't about us, this was about finishing something that we'd started. So we pushed on. The problem we had, by the time we got back in the water, it was around 2 o'clock. That left us with around 17 miles to do in 5 hours, which was pretty impossible. In the back of our minds, we all knew that we were going to be rowing through the night, but we didn't have much of a choice, so we just cracked on and paddled relentlessly. We reached Bangor-on-Dee around 8 PM to meet the support vehicle. We loaded our boats full of all the equipment we'd need for the night ahead. Once we got back on the river, the mission was to find a campsite as quick as possible. The sun had gone down and it was getting darker by every minute. We couldn't even see any of the bays that we'd scouted out on the map and genuinely had no idea where we was going to camp. Luckily enough, we found a spot around 9:30 at night. In the rush of getting all our gear onto our boats at Bangor-on-Dee, we'd forgot so much. So we had to set up our tents and make a campfire with no head torch. This was an absolute mission. All the lads were tired and stressed, but this was the last thing we needed. So we decided to group up into teams. Tim and myself would go and get the firewood and set a fire up. Zane and Jay, they'd set up the tents. We found some pop noodles, hot dogs and some soggy bread. We sat by the campfire for the last night of the trip, reminiscing over the funny bits that had happened, and also proud of each other for how far we came. Before we knew it, Zane and Tim were both fast asleep on the pebbled floor around the campfire. So that was it, alarms were set early for one last go. Waking up on that final day, we were broken men. Arms were hurting, backs were hurting, hips were hurting, everything was hurting. The worrying part was when I got a phone call from Lucy telling me that she doesn't think we're going to make it due to how long we had left to row. This lit a spark in everybody. There was no way we was going to let the river beat us on the last day. The tricky part of this section is it's very slow, no current, and honestly it was the hardest day for everybody. It meant that every inch of this river had to be paddled. On the final stretch, we were all absolutely exhausted. There wasn't a single one of us that wasn't going through pain. But we pulled over, put up our makeshift flag, which gave us another spark to keep going. Seeing that flag trailing behind Tim's kayak was very emotional. Nobody said anything, but we all felt it. It was pretty special seeing the whole team pushing on through together. We arrived in Chester around 5:30. Against the odds, on time and side by side. That moment will honestly stay with me for the rest of my life. I couldn't believe that a dream that I'd held since being a young lad had actually become a reality. Looking back, it wasn't about the rapids, broken boats, or how exhausted we were. It was about something a lot bigger, pushing ourselves further than we'd ever thought possible. There's lots of big organisations out there doing a lot of great work, but sometimes the money that you donate gets lost in transaction. But with the Amelia May Foundation, it's different. It's small, it's personal, and every pound that's donated goes straight to the families that it's affected. Whether it's funding a special day, helping a family through treatment, or simply just giving them some joy in the hardest of times. That is why we've chose them, because your support does not disappear into a machine. It goes straight to the people that need it most. Personally, from myself, I'd like to say a massive thank you to the 3 lads who were with me, Jay, Zane and Tim. Without you 3, to be fair, I don't think I'd have done it. I'd have given up ages ago. Last but not least, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Diane. Diane, honestly, without you, this trip would never have happened. You pitched up our tents, you put our tents down, you were at every meeting spot. There wasn't anything you could have done more, and for that, I really do want to say thank you. We finished this mission, but that was just the beginning. Next time, we're going bigger, better, and even more prepared. We'll see you in Scotland.
Let's see how we dig it on.
Yes!